All right. Looks like we actually have a quorum. That is so, what a gift for Christmas. We can vote on the agenda. All right, then. All right, let's take those long-distance glasses off. All right, it's 2:03 in the afternoon, and it's Monday, December 8th. And this is the Community-Oriented Policing Committee, and we're going to call it to order. And happy holidays to everybody, and all to you out there also. And so let's go ahead and do the roll call.
Mayor Minto.
I'm here.
City Manager Wendy Kesserman.
Here.
Sheriff Department, Santana High School, Brian Wilbur. Here. Institute for Public Strategies, David Shorey.
Here.
We do have a voting quorum present, Mayor.
Did he call your name? Yes. Where was I? I didn't hear it. Okay. We do have a quorum, so you know what? That's going to take us directly to item number 2. Okay, this is going to take a second. That is approval of the July 14th, 2025, September 8th, 2025, October 13th, 2025, and November 10th, 2025 regular meeting minutes. So the gift of Christmas is that we have a quorum.
Move to
motion to approve.
Move to approve.
All right,
4.
David, is there a second?
I second.
Manager Wendy Kesserman.
Yes.
Sheriff's Department Captain Hernandez.
Yes.
Santana High School, Brian Wilbur. Yes. Santee Chamber of Commerce, Amanda Daughtry.
Yes.
Institute for Public Strategies, David Shorey.
Yes.
Linda Roach.
Yes.
Dr. Foreman.
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously with members present.
Oh, thank you very much. That takes us to item number 3, which is an update on neighborhood watch and crime prevention. Aldo, do you have anything for us?
Yes, sir. In addition to participating in community events, our deputies are very active in the community, in the schools. Last week, we attended Shop with a Principal with the Santee Elementary School District. We sent like 10 deputies to go out there with the kids. They went to Walmart and shopped, helped them shop, and they had a great time. In addition to that, with the holidays in full swing, we have reallocated our resources a little bit, and we've assigned deputies to the TCP area so they can patrol that area, handle any shoplifting reports, or maybe do some preventive actions before things happen. And we're in full swing with holiday watch.
What's
And,
TCP?
The shopping center, isn't that what it's called?
Town Center Parkway?
Town Center Parkway area? Yeah.
Just for those who didn't know what that meant.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, sir. That's what the deputies call it, so that's what I call it.
Perfect.
Yes, sir. And in addition to that, I'd like to introduce our new crime prevention specialist. Her name is Jocelyn Polito. She's going to start with us.
I'm really proud.
Some of that drive for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to item number 4, which is the San Diego County District Attorney. Come on up. Like Summer said, we go back a long way, so I get a little bit flippant sometimes. Well, always. A little.
Well, great. Good afternoon. Santee is proudly one of my 18 cities that I have the honor of serving and 39 unincorporated areas. It's a great team of 1,000, and you could see not meant to let them work on other things while I update you on Proposition 36 implementation. The city of Santee, along with all of San Diego County, worked very hard to implement Proposition 36, and this proposition passed in, let's see, if this is working. Should I use another button? I did.
Oh, we have time.
What happened to you?
Sorry.
That's okay if we do it. There we go.
Still use this?
Hey.
Okay. All right. So Proposition 36 passed in all 58 counties by over 68%. And I say this because at the end of my presentation, I will just put on the radar that it's very important that it be 36. But despite the lack of funding, I'm going to show you the data as to what has happened so far with the implementation of Proposition 36. So Proposition 36, if you remember, was on the November ballot last year. It went into effect December 18th or 31st. To kind of show you where we are so far as we near the end of the year. Habitual theft and habitual hard drug use. Those were the main target areas because it focused on that intersection and to habitual hard drug use with intersections with homelessness along with theft. It was really clear that something had to be done because no matter how many times there were repeat offenses, you always had a misdemeanor or a citation. So the law as it stood did not differentiate people who make a first. It didn't differentiate between those folks and people who just were persistent in committing crimes. One of the main things it did that went into effect because it did not require any funding was Alexandra's Law. Alexandra's Law allows or actually mandates that the court give an admonishment for any drug dealers that the next time you sell drugs and someone dies, you will be held responsible for a murder. So this is similar to our DUI laws, where when you get a DUI, you get a Watson advisal advising you that the next time you're going to face that. This is something that Alexandra's father, Alexandra, was one of 77,000 people who died in the United States in 1 year because of fentanyl. 77,000. Alexandra was one of those young people who died, and her father, Matt Capelouto, and her mom really wanted to add that to Proposition 36. This is the admonishment that's being read in every courtroom, and it's pretty interesting. It's been pretty effective. You could see that this is penetrating, and in San Diego, our overdose numbers from fentanyl have gone down by 40%. It's a very dramatic number, from 814 in 1 year to 467, which is a very encouraging trend. We also, because fentanyl only takes 2.2 grams to kill you, we added the correct weight enhancement for fentanyl as compared to other drugs. It also added a great bodily injury enhancement. So if you sell drugs and kill someone, you will be held responsible as a great bodily injury for that, which we didn't have. Only federal law had that. Now, if I'm going to get to the treatment mandated felony. So this is very exciting. It created for the first time a felony that mandates treatment. And almost everybody's eligible for this. They just have to accept it and do the treatment. And if they do the treatment, they end up with no conviction. So this was something that the community really wanted, because our drug courts were half empty. As many of our deputies know, you offer someone to go into a detox, to go to treatment. The answer is usually no, if there's no teeth to the law, because addiction is so difficult to overcome. So you need some incentive, and this is what was provided there. I'm going to go to how, and then it addressed the habitual theft. So it allowed a common sense aggregation. So if somebody hits, let's say at each store, you can put the amounts together to make it more than $950. It also said that someone with 2 prior thefts can face a felony charge. So it still allows for 2 prior convictions, the same with, and address those. So here's the data. I track this data weekly, and it's very important to track data to see what's happening. And in San Diego County, from December 18 to October 31st of this year, we charged 1,838 felonies for drug possession, hard drug, that's fentanyl, methamphetamine mainly, with 2 priors. And we charged 884 individuals with a felony for theft with priors. So already in San Diego, 2,000, but I think the more exciting part is to look at this quick summary, despite the lack of funding, with a lot of help from the court and the partners, the sheriff, and basically behavioral health, we were able to still implement Proposition 36 on April 7th. So we already were giving people treatment mandated felony, but we couldn't track because it was not a unified assessment and referral system. So as of April 7th, this is the graph. It's kind of amazing to look at it. Essentially, 96.7% of people who have been in a cycle of addiction and hard drugs with 2 priors, usually they have the probation track of treatment, which means that they have other cases going at the same time. As you could see, despite what people who claimed that this is going to be a mass incarceration system. Only 21 people of this track of 645 have gone to prison locally or in the last year. So it's fulfilling exactly what we told the people it would fulfill, which is that it will incentivize through a choice of either going to jail or prison or engaging in treatment, a treatment track, which is, a way to swim upstream and make sure that criminal activity doesn't continue. On the theft with priors, as you could see, 71% received probation and 22.22 went to prison or jail because that doesn't have a treatment mandated portion. But it's still, even with that, you could see that many joined, 6.5% joined drug court because the underlying reason for their theft was drug court. So this is a little bit of the summary. So far, we've been able to do this again with no funding, but the sheriff, the way the law is written, the people who are booked under the drugs with priors or theft with priors must be held in custody until they see a judge. So that's an additional population of almost 3,000 that are in the sheriff's jail who normally would be misdemeanor or citation. So they're not in the custody until they see a judge. So that's adding a lot of burden on the sheriff. Behavioral health, who used to get no's for treatment, now has over 1,000 that says basically you're either going to go into outpatient, go into inpatient, supporting all those contracts, not able to get jobs with their heavy addiction, they're committing other crimes. We're already seeing a trend of the overall crime picture becoming more safer. We won't be able to tell for another 6 months exactly, but we're already seeing an overall reduction, assaults and battery and residential burglaries and a bunch of other criminal activity. Also, in case you don't track, because I don't have a great fun life, so I track what the medical examiner does. He's one of my best friends. So the medical examiner's numbers show that you have youth fleeing terrible homes. You have a lot of factors, but addiction is definitely, there's no denying, one of the factors that keeps people in a cycle of homelessness. So we're hoping that this intervention is going to also relieve some of our homelessness issue by encouraging people to take on treatment. Now, my dream that I've presented to the court that I want a full court similar to what we have in Veterans Treatment Court, where you have a navigator for housing and shelter. In the court, you have peer support to help the person succeed at the end of it. You have all of not just the treatment, but everything that goes with it, including transportation to get them to the treatment. If we did do all of this, I think all of us who've worked in this field, public safety, in any part of it, know that it's going to translate into lives saved and better public safety numbers for everyone, and actually a much cheaper cost than continual catch and release, incarceration, cycles of crime and criminality. So I'm really hopeful that our legislature and our state will fund this fully, because we're already proving it works even without funding. Can I answer any questions?
Great. We have any speaker slips? Okay. I'm just going to say a couple things before I go to the committee. Excuse me. I know there's a lot of folks that work very hard on this, a lot of district attorneys across the state. So one of my questions would be are other counties reaching these same kind of milestones? Do you get reports? Do you guys collaborate on that?
Yes, we do, and sadly, really, our numbers are a standout. Most counties have good numbers in terms of the number of people facing this new law, but they don't have the same numbers with regard to the treatment track. And it's because what's happened is basically since there's no funding, their courts didn't want to. Our court, thankfully, because of long-time relationships and understanding of the importance of this, has set up in East, South, North, and Central a specialized court for the Prop 36 calendar. Our sheriff has done their part, and we're doing our part without whining about any additional stuff. So we're doing the best we can. We have pretty outstanding numbers compared to other counties. But I think if the funding came, we'd see more statewide. The problem is it's sort of like now that the few people that did not want Prop 36 now are using those same numbers and you've probably seen those in the paper, that across the state, very few people are getting treatment. They're using it to say the law is bad. The law isn't bad. We're showing it works. It just needs the funding.
Right. So speaking of funding, I think you'll probably be happy to hear this past week, the League of California Cities met in Rancho Mirage. There were well over 100 municipal legislators there with city attorneys, city clerks, and city managers. And they only create 3 to 4 top priorities for the coming year. And one of their top priorities was the funding of Prop 36.
That's great.
Because, and a lot of people we've heard this so many times. This is a Democrat versus a Republican type of law. And most of the people there, very mixed, didn't matter what party. Every single legislator, there'd be a very big old days. And you either do it our way, you go to jail. And so our way, you go to jail. And some of those people, like you said, that were opponents are now proponents because they see that there is something going. So out of the 485 cities in the state of California, I can tell you that each one of them, their priority is funding for Proposition 36.
That's really great news, Mayor, really great. That news hadn't traveled to me, so thank you.
You're welcome, and it's actually kind of cool I get to tell you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So anyways, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing. I know I joke about us going a long ways back, but I know you've been a hardworking DA for a long time, and I appreciate you doing what you're doing here. So I'm going to just go ahead and open it up for questioning now. Let's start on this side over here.
Thank you. I'm Rebecca Brandstetter with the Community Action Service and Advocacy. What I kept hearing over and over again was that there's a input from a lot of different systems, that this kind of breaks down the silos and uses all these fabulous services that are available at the county, at the city levels, to work together to help individual humans. And so
I have no idea. Oh, there it worked. Well, on behalf of those of us trying to raise the next generation up to be a part of society, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
If at some point this addresses the vaping issues that we have in the high schools, we have an epidemic. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'd love to work with you on this because I'm hearing more and more and more about it. Yep.
No questions, but again, to echo the same sentiment, thank you for what you're doing and the time spent on this. It's really important, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone's support.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Denny McLagan. I've worked in substance use disorder treatment for 33 years. I'm retiring January 2nd. of course, I'm a believer that jail is not the place to find recovery. And that typically people that go to prison come out being better drug addicts. I'm curious about one thing, and I understand your challenges. You know, our programs are full. And last year they weren't. So obviously we're getting those referrals. My concern is oftentimes what happens is that somebody's ordered to treatment. They may or may not show up while they're in treatment. We're aware that relapse is a possibility and something that we work with, but we're also aware that people can be removed from treatment, and then I'm not clear what happens. Typically, we need the stick, not just, well, if you fall out of this treatment, we'll put you over here in Joe's drive-through treatment program over there. Well, that fell out, so we'll put you over in Susie's, program. And so I'm wondering if you have any information or if you're going to gather any information on noncompliance and issues like that.
No, very important. Yes, we're trying to gather all that information. The program, the way the treatment months, and there is weekly reporting back, and sometimes it's if they're inpatient, then they can do it. Before I attended court the other day, are to me saving their life by holding them accountable. We had one gentleman that just played around with it, the orders, wasn't really doing anything, so the judge, he came to court and made up another story, and Narcan saved his life. So the judge absolutely was right, and that's the thing is people assume that, when you exercise that kind of control by the court, that somehow you're not being compassionate, but you're actually, if you balance that accountability, you're being compassionate. So we're tracking everything. Could there be some that, their attorneys will tell this story, that story will play around between programs? I'm sure that's going to happen, but I think the goal is to hold people accountable and come back to court and get the real story and get the verification from the provider that the person is engaging.
So, there's a lot of good data out there about that course care actually does work, and the drug courts are very effective. And they were effective for years and years and years, and then kind of that a long run.
Yes.
Where you end up in our sheriff's jail and hotel, and you're able to get some focus again. So, again, I don't believe that you can beat addiction out of somebody. That doesn't work. But I'm also a believer that sometimes you need a spoonful of that's a no.
Yeah.
And here you go, open wide, and we can get there. And the collaboration and that collaborative approach. I'm one of the founders of the Serial Inebriate Program. Of course, everything costs money, so I'm hopeful for that. I just really am glad to see this partnership come back between treatment providers, autonomy of care, where each person works in a silo, into this coerced care where all of us are talking about Bob. We all know Bob. We all know where Bob's supposed to be, and that we're encouraging people to seek help. And so I appreciate you coming today. I'd like to see some information about the level of compliance over the longer term and see how well we're tracking on that. But thank
District Attorney Stefan, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. It's an honor for us to hear from you. I do have a couple of questions going into jail and accumulating felonies. Is that when they get out of jail, the ability to get a job or get, secure employment is sometimes impaired by that. Is there I ask because I don't know, is there a process within Prop 36 that if to get their life back in order, is there a way they can petition the courts for a reduction of that to like a misdemeanor or an expungement?
No, plead guilty, but you are not sentenced, so there's no conviction. You go into the treatment, and if you complete the treatment, that's how it works. Now, for the petty theft or the theft with priors, that's not the same situation. You can petition to court at that point, but in the drug treatment part, it's mandatory that you end up, if you succeed, you end up with no felony conviction.
Awesome,
Yeah.
thank you. And then the other question I had is, one question is, a lot of folks, so I work in prevention, IPS, Institute for Public Strategies, does
Yes.
community-based prevention. And so One of the things that is really becoming more and more aware is the issue of dual diagnosis, as well as adverse childhood experiences and trauma, and the impact that it has on individuals in terms of making decisions or just using to numb the pain. And I always feel like that kind of falls through some cracks in terms of looking at the treatment, looking at the conversation around addiction. And I'm not sure if Prop 36 is helping to raise that issue up, but just to kind of drop it in your ear that if there's any way to reel this as a whole.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, in our drug court, I would say almost everybody's dual diagnosis. I think what came first, the chicken or the egg? If the drug use caused mental health that looks, or you had organic mental health and you use drugs, we're there, you know. So the way that we wrote the law is that the assessment doesn't just look at, could be, the program they're referred to is really based on the assessment. You could even have an assessment that's really about cognitive behavioral therapy, meaning they're not really addicted, they just have criminal thinking and it's more something else. Or it can be that, which I haven't seen so far, somebody just needs like work readiness. We haven't seen that when you've already accumulated multiple needs, and to try to meet those and not be kind of in one box of chemical addiction. So thank you for that.
And then my final question is, does this have any impact on how minors are treated within the system? Was there any modification to, obviously we want to look at our minors, and if they're starting use young or they're engaging behavior at a young age, that, if we can work to affect that earlier, it has positive repercussions down the line. So
Prop 36 purposefully did not address minors. It left that alone, so it really targeted more recidivist adults. In our juveniles, it's really tough. I have a very successful juvenile diversion program that I instituted, where we hold their case for 6 months, working with the police department, and there's an assessment and services are brought, whether it's addiction, mental health, trauma, ACEs, all of that, and it's very successful. But Prop 36 did not address the juvenile part. It was going to be too complicated because of too many things. Yeah.
thank you.
For Prop 36, is there legislation you'd be looking for the committee to support? For anyone who may be watching the meeting to support, is that working its way through the process?
Yeah, they're working on a package in the California District Attorneys Association, so I don't have a number yet, but it addresses the 6. I will definitely let you know and every city know once we have that developed. But I'm very excited that the League of Cities already took the leap and is kind of ready to support viable efforts. It's great. Thank you. Hi, Dr. Foreman. How are you?
It's good
Nice to see you.
It's been a while.
Yes.
And such a complex issue. I wasn't hearing you be able to dive into much of the history of how we got here. I'm not going to go too far, only to the 1970s, but in the 70s, the mental hospitals went through some major challenges for whatever was going on in mental health treatment and stuff. And a lot of people were released from treatment. And so then the criminal justice system then became the #1 mental health provider in the nation, but certainly in the state. So people were then housed in prisons and in jails receiving mental health treatment. And now here we are cyclically, decades later, support with resources, et cetera. So along comes this proposition to try to somehow make an adjustment to all of this to keep everybody safe. The people that are addicted, the people that are out in the community, it's a little bit of everybody. So I was really struck when I heard Brian identify that he's a feeder into the system, not him specifically, but the school districts around the adverse childhood experiences and et cetera. the First Five Commission, early identification of adverse childhood experiences, not just that they exist, but the early identification of them. Those kids that we were working with way back then are now the population we're talking about now. The importance of prevention is huge, and it goes across party lines. It's not a political thing. Funding it may become political, but these issues touch all of our lives, or have the potential to touch all of our families, all of our neighbors, and whatnot. Confidentiality. A patient comes into a therapist, whether it's a behavioral health therapist for drug treatment or mental health, but it may. And this is a challenge for therapists. So when they're working with people and they are having to report to the court or whatnot. But some of the challenges of doing the mandated treatment to say, okay, you graduated, we're going to make this felony go away, and then they relapse. Here's my question. Does that felony come back? Or can it be reinvigorated along with the new one? Or once it's off the books because they did successfully complete the treatment, et cetera, that they're okay to move on, and because relapse is a major challenge with all addictions, not just drugs.
Yeah, no, I mean, great points. Very interesting that you bring up the privacy thing, because actually that's the first obstacle I had to meet. The public defenders and defense attorneys said, oh, no way, the DA is going to read their therapist assessment and all of this. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not interested in reading any of that. I just want to know what the treatment is they're supposed to, so I can hold them accountable to what the professional said, the treatment said. So I just took that and threw it, because I wasn't going to have what am I going to fight over? I don't want to read people's private information. I just want to know that there's a competent assessor that says this is what they need to do based on my assessment, which is a standard assessment for everyone. And I want to be able to tell the court whether they're meeting it or not. That's it. So that's one of the reasons why we leap forward, why some other places are still fighting over those privacy issues, so it's interesting that you bring it up, because that was one of the first. Have some people already that are charged that have committed another offense like it. But it doesn't say it can't be offered to them again. It doesn't have a bar. It just makes it an option for the court to look at whether they're at a place where they should be readmitted into a program or not. But of course, it's a case by case, and it's going to be very challenging. You're right.
So I just want to weigh in real quick on that, because obviously we're discussing HIPAA when we talk about privacy rights, I'm guessing. And there was a number of organizations give out any information or share information. And so it was determined back, it's almost 18 to 20 years ago now, the Virginia Tech shooting. We all remember that. And what they found in the investigation is HIPAA got in the way of treatment and prevention, and the prevention of the serious crimes. So there were some modifications into HIPAA, from my recollection, that said that is working together as a collaborate to help somebody can share information. So that's how we, I hate to say get around some of the HIPAA issues or privacy issues, but it actually falls within that law now, or the act. So that's all
We use in our school threats assessment is we sometimes have to fight with schools and about it. We can't hide it. We have to protect the schools. So you're right. Sometimes people overread into HIPAA.
Before Linda, a little bit of nuance here, because absolutely TerraSoft, which I think you're referring to TerraSoft warnings, et cetera, continues to change the landscape, trying to get it just right. What can we just blurt out, not blurt out, but can we tell law enforcement, versus what a patient starts to internalize as to, can I trust my therapist? Because if I tell my therapist this and they go tell the court this, what's that going to do? And it sounds like your office is trying to address some of these issues. We don't know what the other jurisdictions might be doing. So it's kind of a different, a nuanced of confidentiality. It's a broad field.
Right.
Because definitely the public safety on threats.
Obviously, they get their notice of privacy practice and all that, and we can't share and everything. Most clients that are coerced care have already signed a release of confidentiality prior to entering the program. People that are like with Child Protective Services, I'm not going to share their childhood trauma with the courts. It's not relevant to what's happening, program rules, and those kind of basic things. But as far as the clinical work, we wouldn't talk about that. And it's very important that we don't. And we have 7 days to get that done. And no to every question, never happened. And then, week 2, they're in group going, all of that happened. All of that was true. So it's okay. We work through that process, but you're not wrong to say that it is a barrier at the onset of that, but we've never found where the courts have said, I demand to know if she has a history of trauma when she was 8 years old. I've never had somebody demand that information or found it useful, like the district attorney says. How does that help the case? But again, on this side of it, what you're saying is, yes, it really takes a lot of trust building and stuff for people that are in coerced care or have not had a positive experience previously with the courts and saying, well, yeah, last time I had a relapse, I told you about it and I broke out in handcuffs. So there are some workarounds on that. I can say that the prosecutor's office has always been the most amenable to following what treatment recommends, along with probation and parole. They don't want to be in the driver's seat. They want treatment to be in the driver's seat and say, you tell us what's the appropriate next step here, because they don't work in clinical work. They don't do clinical work. So I have to applaud your department for that willingness to say, we don't, and judges too. They're like, hey, I just bang a gavel. This is what I do. I know the law, and they're really good about allowing the treatment providers to be in that driver's seat. So thank you for that. I don't know if that helps you at all, Dr. Foreman.
No, that's a good point. Good discussion.
Linda.
I also would echo the comments that you've heard from the panel. I appreciate your efforts in implementing Prop 36, obviously in a very thoughtful, forward-thinking manner. I actually am looking ahead 2 or 3, maybe 5 years hence, and I will be interested in seeing some statistics with regard to recidivism. And you kind of touched on that a little bit when you were responding back to Dr. Foreman. I would current opponents of Prop 36. So I greatly appreciate your and your team's efforts in making this a reality. Thank you for the communication, the collaboration, the partnership with other service providers so that we can all be united in addressing these.
To us today.
Carl, do you have any questions or comments? Anybody else in the gallery? Any comments or questions? Okay. Well, we want to thank you very much for being here today.
My pleasure.
It's always a pleasure seeing you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that, and great discussion, and I took some notes away. Thank you very much.
And we got you out before 5.